When the first real crisis hits your area, the shelves at Tractor Supply don't empty top to bottom. They empty in a specific order. There's a pattern to it, and the people who understand that pattern are already home, unloading their truck, before the panic even starts. I've watched it happen more times than I can count. Ice storm on the forecast. Hurricane cone shifts toward the coast. Grid operator issues a warning. Doesn't matter what the trigger is, the parking lot fills with the same trucks, and the same 12 items disappear off those shelves faster than anything else in the entire store. Not the tactical junk. Not the overpriced survival kits stacked by the register with the camo packaging and the $80 price tag. 12 ordinary items sitting in plain sight right now that go from fully stocked to bare metal shelf in under 2 hours the moment people wake up and realize what's coming. Here's the problem. Most people find out which 12 items those are on the exact day it's already too late to get them. By the time you feel the urgency, really feel it in your gut, you're the 40th truck in that lot, walking fast through the sliding doors, straight to an empty spot on the shelf where the thing you needed used to be. And you stand there, and you already know you waited too long. So I'm going to hand you the list before you need it. All 12. The exact aisle you'll find each one in. The real price. And a couple of these are the same product you're overpaying for somewhere else right now, just with a fancier label and a bigger markup. And the one specific scenario each item is built to dominate, so you're not just buying gear, you're buying a plan. And I'll tell you right now, 11 of these you could probably figure out if you sat down and thought hard about it. But item number 12? You would never grab it in a panic. Never. You'd walk right past it on your way to the generators. It's cheap. It's boring. It sits in a section of the store you don't even browse. And it might be the single item that decides whether you survive the crisis or whether you survive everything that comes after it. Because those are two completely different questions, and almost nobody in that parking lot is thinking about the second one. Keep that in your head. We're building to it. 12 items. 1 cart. Here's exactly how this works. For every single one, I'm giving you the aisle, the real price, what it actually is under the label, and the scenario it's made for. And I'm keeping a live running total as we go, because the number at the end, for everything, all 12, is going to be smaller than you think. This isn't a hoarding list, it's a priority list. It's what to grab first, in order, while everyone else is still asleep. Let's go. Item 1. Galvanized stock tanks. Walk past the registers, past the feed, all the way back to the livestock section. You're looking for the big round steel troughs, the ones ranchers use to water cattle. On a normal day, a 100-gallon tank runs you somewhere around $60 to $90 depending on size. Now here's what you're actually buying. Drop a food-safe liner or bladder inside it, and that's 100+ gallons of clean water storage sitting in your garage. Let that land. 100 gallons of water weighs roughly 800 pounds. That's 800 pounds of thermal mass. Set it in a basement or a cellar, and it passively moderates the temperature of the room around it, summer and winter, for free. So you've got water storage, you've got rain catchment when you run a downspout into it, you've got a wash basin, and you've got passive climate control. 4 functions from one piece of stamped steel. Here's why it matters. You cannot carry your way out of a water crisis. You can't run to the store on day 2, because on day 2 the store is empty and the water aisle looks like a picked-over skeleton. You either stored it before, or you didn't. During the 2021 Texas grid collapse, the families who'd pre-filled their stock tanks had gravity-fed water for days while their neighbors were out in the yard melting snow in stock pots. Running total, about $75. Item 2. Hurricane lanterns and kerosene lamp oil. Head to the seasonal and hardware aisle. A classic wick hurricane lantern, not the old glass and metal design, runs you around $10 to $12. A gallon of lamp oil sits near it, another 10 to 12. Now do the math nobody does. 1 gallon of lamp oil gives you roughly 45 hours of steady burn time in a standard lantern. Break that down and you're looking at somewhere around 20 to 25 cents per hour of light. Compare that to batteries. A pack of D cells costs you $8 to $10 and gives you maybe 30 hours in a decent flashlight before it dies and you throw it away. The lantern gives you light with zero dependency on charging, zero dependency on the grid, and as a bonus, a real supplemental heat source in a small closed room and a signaling tool at night. Here's why it matters. Batteries are a countdown. Every one you own is ticking toward dead. Fuel is a reserve. It sits there, stable, waiting, for as long as you need it. That's the entire difference between a supply and a shortage. Running total, about $97. Item 3. Propane heaters and the 20-pound tanks to run them. Heating and seasonal aisle. A good indoor safe radiant heater, the portable kind built to run off a bottle, runs around $80, and the refillable tanks are stacked right there beside it. What you're buying is heat that doesn't care whether the power is on. And I want to be clear and responsible here. Anything that burns fuel indoors demands ventilation and a working carbon monoxide detector. That's not optional. That's the rule that keeps this item from being dangerous. Used correctly, you've got heat, an emergency cooking surface, and honestly, morale, which matters more in a cold, dark house than people admit. Here's why it matters. Exposure has a shorter clock than hunger. You can go weeks without food. In a house that's dropping below freezing, you're in trouble in hours, not days. Winter storm deaths cluster almost entirely in homes that lost the ability to stay warm. Running total, about $180. Item 4. A portable generator and a bottle of fuel stabilizer. Power equipment section. You already know where it is, it's the loud corner of the store. An entry-level inverter generator runs somewhere in the $400 to $500 range, and this is the single biggest line item on our list, so I'll be honest that it's the splurge. But here's the piece almost everyone forgets. The $10 bottle of fuel stabilizer sitting on the shelf beside it. Stored gasoline goes stale and gums up an engine in months. Stabilizer is what keeps your emergency fuel actually usable when the emergency finally comes. The generator itself keeps your refrigeration running, keeps medical devices alive. And if someone in your home depends on a powered device, this stops being optional. Keeps your well pump working, keeps your phone and radio charged. Here's why it matters. The generator is the loudest thing on this list, literally and figuratively, and it is the very first item to vanish. It's gone before the storm even makes landfall. After every major hurricane, generators become the single most hunted item across 3 states. Running total, about $650. 4 items in. And every single one of these, your neighbors will fight over. I mean that literally. I've seen the arguments in the aisle. But we're just getting started, and we're about to move into the items the smart buyers grab. The stuff that doesn't even look like survival gear. The things you'd walk right past because they're sitting in a section you've got no reason to visit, unless you know. And I still haven't told you what item 12 is. Stay with me. It's coming. And when you see it, it changes how you look at this entire list. Item 5. Metal Jerry fuel cans. Automotive aisle. The heavy steel military-style cans, not the flimsy plastic spouted ones that crack in the cold. Those run you around $25 to $35 each, and you want more than one. Here's the insight most people miss. In a real fuel crisis, the shortage isn't just fuel. It's the ability to store fuel. Everyone can drive to a station on hour 1. Almost nobody has a way to hold 30 gallons safely at home when the stations run dry on hour 8. These cans fuel your generator. They mix for your chainsaw. They extend your vehicle's range past a single tank, and they become one of the most valuable barter items in existence when the pumps go dark. Here's why it matters. A generator with no way to store fuel is an 8-hour paperweight. The fuel cans are what turn it from a gimmick into a system. When the evacuation orders hit and the fuel lines stretch for a mile, the people with cans already full are the ones driving past that line. Running total, about $690. Item 6. Heavy-duty poly and silage tarps. Livestock and farm section, not the camping aisle. And that's the whole trick. The contractor-grade and agricultural tarps here cost a fraction of what an outdoor retailer charges for the identical woven polyethylene with the word shelter printed on it. Grab the heavy ones with the reinforced grommets. What can one tarp do? It's a roof when yours is compromised. It's a moisture barrier between you and cold, wet ground. It's a rain catchment funnel feeding straight into that stock tank from item 1. It's a windbreak. It's a solar still membrane if you know the trick. 5 functions from one folded sheet of plastic. Here's why it matters. Get wet and get cold at the same time, and your body has hours, not days. Shelter isn't the pretty part of survival, but it's the part that kills quietly and fast when it fails. After Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico, tarps were the single most requested item across the island. For months, not weeks. Roofs were gone, and a tarp was the difference between a dry family and a sick one. Running total, about $710. Item 7. A chainsaw plus a spare chain and bar oil. Power equipment, right near the generators. Now, the saw itself is the obvious buy. But here's the insider move. The spare chain and the bar and chain oil are what actually vanish, and they're what people forget. A chainsaw with a dull or broken chain and no oil is a heavy, useless prop. Stock the consumables. What's it for? Clearing the tree that's blocking your only road out. Cutting firewood when the heat's gone and it's going to be gone a while. Clearing debris so emergency vehicles, or you, can actually move. Here's why it matters. After almost every major storm, the very first job, before food, before water runs, is cutting your way out of your own neighborhood. The roads are choked with downed timber, and the county crews are days away. The household with a running saw and a sharp spare chain is mobile while everyone else is trapped in their driveway. Running total, about $920. Item 8. Livestock electrolyte powder. Animal health aisle. Grab the electrolyte powder formulated for calves and horses and read the ingredient panel on the back. Sodium, potassium, magnesium. The ratios in these veterinary rehydration formulas are broadly comparable to the oral rehydration principles used in human medicine. And I want to be straight with you, that's context, not a prescription. If you're ever using anything like this for a person, that's a conversation for a medical professional, and the packaging's intended use is for animals. That said, understanding the chemistry is exactly the kind of thing that separates people who plan from people who panic. An $8 pouch mixes into gallons of rehydration solution versus a $1.50 single-serving sports drink that's mostly sugar. The cost per dose isn't in the same universe. Here's why it matters. In heat, in illness, in exertion, plain water alone doesn't fully solve dehydration. You lose electrolytes and you have to replace them, or you keep sliding downhill even while you're drinking. Field medicine has long understood that veterinary and human supply chains overlap when the pharmacy shelves empty out. It's not improvisation. It's a known reality of austere care. Running total, about $928. Item 9. Veterinary wound care, the triple antibiotic ointment on the animal health shelf. You're still in the livestock medical aisle. Look for the tube listing bacitracin, neomycin, and polymyxin B. Read that combination again, because it's the exact same active ingredient trio sold at every pharmacy in the country for wound care. The civilian move is paying $11 or $12 for a tiny tube at the drugstore. Here, you're often picking up several times the volume for less money, because the label says, for animal use. Same actives, same concentrations, different aisle. And again, responsibly, this is general information about product chemistry, not medical advice. And human wound care decisions belong with a healthcare provider. But the functions speak for themselves. Wound coverage, a barrier on minor burns, protection against grit and contamination in a dirty environment, and management of small lacerations. Here's why it matters. When the grid goes down and hygiene gets hard, infection becomes the #1 preventable killer. Not dehydration, not exposure. Infection. A small cut that turns into a big problem because there was no way to keep it clean and covered. The people who stock this already understand that. Now you do too. Running total, about $938. We are past the halfway mark. The cart is heavy, the truck bed is filling up, and everything we've loaded so far has one job. Keep you alive through the crisis. Water, light, heat, power, fuel, shelter, mobility, medicine. That's a complete kit for surviving the event. But items 10, 11, and 12 are different. Fundamentally different. These are the ones almost nobody in that parking lot grabs, because they're not about surviving the emergency. They're about what happens when the emergency doesn't end in a week. When a few days without power quietly becomes a few weeks, then longer. And item 12, 12 is the one that separates those two worlds completely. It's the reason I told you at the very beginning to keep it in your head. We're almost there. Two more, then the reveal. Item 10, cast iron cookware, a skillet and a Dutch oven. Housewares aisle. Tractor Supply carries good cast iron at a price that undercuts kitchen retailers by a real margin. You're looking at roughly $20 to $25 for a solid 10-inch skillet, a little more for a Dutch oven. Now here's the thing. Most people cycle through non-stick pans every 18 to 24 months. The coating scratches, degrades, flakes, and the whole thing goes in the trash. A cast iron skillet does the opposite. It gets better with age, and it outlives the person who bought it. That's not marketing. That's metallurgy. What can it do that matters in a crisis? It cooks directly over an open flame when the stove is dead. It boils water for purification. It bakes bread buried in coals. A Dutch oven is a functional oven with no electricity anywhere in the equation. And it holds and radiates heat long after you pull it from the fire. Here's why it matters. Your fancy cookware is a 2-year disposable. This is a 50-year tool you'll hand down. When the way you cook has to change overnight, the pan that works over fire is the only pan that counts. Running total, about $965. Item 11, calcium hypochlorite, pond and pool shock. Now walk to a part of the store you have genuinely never had a reason to visit, the pond and livestock water treatment section. Look for the bags labeled calcium hypochlorite, sold as pond shock or pool shock. Roughly $15 for a bag. Here's the reveal that reframes everything about item 1. That single small bag, used correctly, can disinfect thousands upon thousands of gallons of water. Let that land against the stock tank. The tank stores 100 gallons. This bag makes water safe by the thousands. A pallet of bottled water is a finite countdown. A bag of treatment chemical renews your supply from any questionable source you can find. Now, this is the item on the entire list where I have to be the most careful with you, because the chemistry is powerful and the dilution matters enormously. I'm not going to give you improvised dosing on camera, and you shouldn't trust anyone who does off the cuff. What I'll tell you is this. Get the correct water treatment ratios from an authoritative source. Public health water disinfection guidance exists specifically for this. Learn the handling and storage precautions, and respect the material, because concentrated pool chemicals are hazardous when mishandled. Treated with that respect, its functions are water disinfection, surface sanitation, long shelf stability, and enormous barter value. Here's why it matters. Water storage runs out. Water treatment doesn't. It turns the creek, the rain barrel, the pond into drinking water, over and over. Running total, about $980. Item 12. This is the one I've been holding since the very first sentence. The item you'd walk right past on your way to the loud, expensive, obvious gear. Here it is. A box of open-pollinated heirloom garden seeds. 2, maybe $3 a packet. Sitting quietly in the garden section you strode past on your way to the generators without a second glance. And I know exactly what you're thinking. Seeds? After a chainsaw and a generator and 100 gallons of stored water? Seeds? Yes, because here's the shift, and this is the whole reason we built to it. Every single other item in this cart answers one question. How do I survive the crisis? Item 12 answers a completely different question. How do I survive when the crisis doesn't end? Stored water is a countdown. Stored food is a countdown. Fuel is a countdown. Every one of those numbers only goes down. Seeds are the only item in this entire store that gives back more than you put in. Everything else on this list is a timeline. This is a strategy. And the word open-pollinated is the insider detail that makes it work, so don't skip it. Most seeds sold today are hybrids. You can grow one crop from them, and then the seeds that crop produces won't grow true the next year. Open-pollinated and heirloom seeds are different. You grow your food, you save seed from your own harvest, and you plant it again next season. And again the year after. It's not one meal. It's a renewing food source that regenerates itself every single season for as long as you keep it going. That's the difference between eating once and eating forever. So what does that one $3 packet actually give you? A renewing food supply. The ability to save seed and keep that supply alive across years. Culinary and medicinal herbs you can't buy when the stores are empty. And once a full growing season passes and it becomes obvious that nobody stocked any, the single highest value barter commodity there is, because you can't fast forward a harvest and you can't manufacture one out of nothing. Here's why it matters, and this is the hard truth underneath the whole video. Throughout history, when shortages stretched from days into months and years, the populations that endured weren't the ones with the biggest stockpiles. Stockpiles empty. The ones who lasted were the ones who could grow. The people who understood soil and seeds and seasons outlasted the people who were still waiting on a resupply that kept not coming. That's the shift I need you to make, right now, before you ever need it. Stockpiling is how you survive a week. Growing is how you survive a year. And almost nobody in that parking lot is thinking 1 inch past the week. Final running total, for all 12 items, right around $983. Now let's put the whole cart in front of you in one breath. Water storage, light, heat, power, fuel, shelter, a saw to cut your way out, electrolytes, wound care, cast iron to cook over fire, water treatment to make thousands of gallons safe, and seeds to grow food when the shelves stop restocking. Under $1,000 priced item by item on a completely ordinary Tuesday afternoon when the store is calm and fully stocked and nobody's in a hurry. And here's the part that should stay with you. On crisis day, half of this cart is already gone, at double the price if you can find it at all, before you've finished your morning coffee. The stock tanks, the generators, the propane, the fuel cans, the tarps, the chainsaws. Cleared out. The pattern I told you about at the start? That's the pattern. Those are the shelves that go bare first, in that order, every single time. Most people will watch this all the way through, nod along, and change absolutely nothing. And then, when it happens, they'll be the 40th truck in the lot, walking fast toward an empty shelf. You're not most people. You're already running the math. You're already thinking about which Tractor Supply is closest to you, and, more importantly, which 3 of these you're grabbing first. So let me answer that for you, because it's the most valuable thing I can leave you with. If you can only afford 3 of these this week, don't start with the generator. Start with items 1, 11, and 12. Store your water. Treat your water. Grow your food. Storage, renewal, and independence. That's the entire survival timeline. Short game, medium game, and long game. In 3 quiet buys that nobody will fight you for in the aisle, because nobody else understands what they're looking at yet. You do now. Next video, I'm building out the exact order to buy all 12 of these in. What to grab in week 1, week 2, and week 3 on a real normal budget. So you're spreading the cost and you're never the person standing in front of an empty shelf wishing you'd started sooner. It's the buying plan that turns this list into a system. Subscribe so it lands in front of you the day it goes up. I'll see you there.